going on, y'all? So the reason for this video is twofold. One, I've been sitting on it for a minute and I've been wanting to do it. And two, a coach from a program I was in asked me recently, what is the most edgiest thing that I can do? And this is it. So a couple months back, some of you may remember. If you don't, we can go back and find it on a page somewhere. But I recorded a video talking about this theory this idea I was kicking around in my mind, thinking about sandboxes. And sandboxes was just a way to explain the world. You know, each of us have our own different sandboxes and whatnot. Certain things work in our sandbox that we look at other sandboxes and say, hey, that would never work over there. Or whatever they're doing over there, they shouldn't be doing because it's not how you operate in a sandbox. So, last November, I stepped down from eldership at my church after only serving for about a year. It's an amazing time. And I had gotten to a point where I could no longer serve in integrity simply because I found myself in a position where I couldn't hold to the truths of the faith or the doctrines of the church. Reached a place where I could no longer affirm them as wholeheartedly as I once did. Reason being, or one of the reasons, there are a few, but one of them is simply that I began to realize that the world that we live in, the world that we occupy, is really created by our beliefs and our expectations of it. What we believe about our world is true, similar to how I talked about it in that Sandboxes video. You have a group of Christians over here who say that, you know, the devil and demons and dark angels and dark spirits, they're active and they're engaging in life, and those are the experiences that they have. Then you have another group over here who says, yeah, the devil may exist, but, you know, to the extent at which he operates, you know, is unknown. And it would seem as though they're living two different experiences. Over here, you have a lot of possessions and essentially exorcisms, if you will. And over here, you get none of that. Why is that? You know, if everybody is if everyone are Christians and serving God have the same enemy, why do we see the polarity and you know, demonic activity and things like that, demonic attacks? Not saying bad things don't happen over here, but those over here are way less quick to place the blame on the devil or some sort of demonic activity, whereas over here, it's probably the explanation for everything. So essentially, what I've come to recognize, or what I believe now, is that there is evidence literally for every theory. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what you want to believe about the world. What you expect to see in the world, that is what your experience is going to give you. That's what you're going to see. One example of this, one day I came home and I was looking for my headphones, you know, these joints I got right here. And I had walked in the hallway like 2 or 3 times up and down the stairs and looking for them because they weren't where I initially put them, or they weren't where I normally keep them. So I asked my wife, I'm like, hey, have you seen my headphones? She was like, oh, Aria was playing with them. They're in the hallway on the floor. So sure enough, I walked up the stairs, looked right there on the floor in the hallway, and there they were. Why didn't I see them? Now, it wasn't that I just didn't see them walking back and forth in the hallway. They were literally invisible to me, simply because I didn't expect them to be there. It was not in my awareness. It wasn't in my consciousness to say, oh, let me look on the floor for my headphones. That's simply my world conforming to what I expect to see and find. I also heard recently about a study that was done among a group of native people on an island somewhere, I forget where it was, but they have no conception, or they have no word for the color blue. Although the sky is blue, like we see that, but they themselves as a tribe within their own culture, they have no word for the color blue. They also have like 16 different words for the color green. And so the person giving this presentation showed this little diagram, had a bunch of green squares and like 1 or 2 blue squares. Said that when they showed individuals from this island this diagram, they only saw the green circle. They only saw the green areas. Nobody saw the blue. Now, me looking at it, I could probably only pick out 2 or 3 shades of green. But he said people from this island picked out just about every single one of them. So again, what's happening here? Reality is conforming to our expectations and our beliefs about what is. So for me, like going through this transition, why go from believing so ardently in the truths and the teachings of the Bible and Christianity and all that to this now amorphous who knows what? To be honest, I'm just at a place where I recognize that, okay, I can believe what it is I want to believe, just as you can. No one is putting a gun to our head, making us believe anything. We believe what we want. And each of us has the ability to decide for ourselves what it is we want to believe. And even me coming to that realization was kind of a significant revelation, and it kind of hit probably sometime last summer as I was thinking about, okay, what type of life is it that I want to live? I'm thinking about these issues over here and looking ahead and like, okay, how is life going to be? And so I was like, well, what is it I want to be doing? What is it that I want to have in my life? What is it that I want to do? And one of the things I had said quite often over the last several years up to that point, I was like, I wouldn't mind being a pastor. I would want to be a pastor. And so at this point, I'm thinking about it and I'm asking myself, like, honestly, like, is this what I want to do? Or is this a desire that I took on simply because it was expected of me? Or because of the environment and the world I had grown up in, I decided to do this because, that's a good thing to do. And so I thought about it for a couple of weeks and I just landed at this point. I'm like, I began to recognize like it wasn't something necessarily that I within myself and of my own individuality chose to want to pursue. Not saying anybody forced me to do it either. That's the tension that we live in. But because I grew up in this church world and saw these preachers and pastors and really looked up to them, it was this desire in me to not necessarily have the prominence, but it's like, if I'm going to do anything good, it needs to be in this realm. And at a point I was like, no, I don't have to do that. So another reason for this shift, as I thought about it, I asked myself, what if spirituality isn't something we are meant to be fighting over? I believe all people in all cultures for all time have recognized the reality of the spiritual world. Each culture has had their deities and their own spiritual traditions and things like that. So the acknowledgement of the spiritual world is there. But what if we weren't meant to be fighting over it? Especially when you look back over time and consider all the wars and everything that have been fought in the name of one religion or another. Even today, the way people ardently look to proselytize, other individuals to their faith. Look at, American missionaries traveling the globe to spread the gospel, to convert people to Christ when America clearly is its own mission field. What if we weren't meant to be fighting or converting each other so voraciously? I thought about it, I'm like, well, what if it's more like a diet, right? Each diet adherent have their own evangelists, and they say you should only eat this, or you should only eat that, or you should definitely cut these things out, and nobody should eat these things. Literally, everybody is different. So one diet, what works for one person, may not work for another person. My body may be able to utilize carbs better than yours. You may be able to metabolize fats better than I can. It depends. What if spirituality is something similar, but just on a whole different level? These are the type of questions I've been asking. And, I even talked about this with my man, Tom. What's good? And, he had pointed out to me, I was like, even in all of those different dietary prescriptions, they all say you should be eating real food, pointing to the common underlying factor in all of them. Nobody's saying you should be eating processed, overly processed foods. All of them suggest you should be eating legitimate, real, whole foods. And when you look at the nature of the spiritual world and religion, everybody, sees and knows and recognizes the necessity and the importance of love. So, can we have love apart from a religious system? Can we have real love, real compassion, real authenticity, real authentic humanity without the ought that is placed on us because of a religious system or a commandment? I believe so. I believe we can have that because I've seen it and I've experienced it. And I'm sure you have too. This kind of gets to the argument where people say, oh, I don't need God to be a good person. There was a time when I would say, nuh-uh, because how would you know what's right and you're only using your own standard of what good or bad is? But from where I sit today, why would I try to force my definition of good or bad onto somebody else? It's like we live in our own worlds individually and, collectively, and we have to get along. So the laws or the rules or social agreements are what help keep the order. But let's be real, when somebody decides to go against that social order, what can we do to really stop them except counteract their activity with an action of our own? And when I think about issues of justice as retributive and punishment, I have to ask, is that the only way? Is retributive justice or punishment for wrong the only way to counteract what we perceive as evil or bad? I think so. I believe there is maybe not a better way, but definitely a different way. So, I feel like I've been rambling up to now. I hope something I've said has made some sense. So just to wrap it all up, this is me kind of publicly declaring my departure from religion, from Christianity, for no other reason than because I want to. Nobody made me, nothing bad happened, nobody wronged me. Wife and I, the family, were good. Yeah, I feel like I'm just growing. I've been in conversation with the elders at the church and several other individuals who have been super loving, super compassionate. And that was one of the reasons that was one of the things that drew me to the church that I'm at now, right? I'm not stepping away from God. I'm not leaving God. What I recognize as the force of all life, the source of all life, that pervades everything, the creator. I am myself. I am not the creator. I'm just merely an individual expression of his essence, its essence, their essence. See, I'm doing the very thing I used to cringe at. when people would qualify, their explanation of God. It was like, whether it's God or source or the universe, whatever you believe, even if you don't believe, that's who I'm talking about. My, how the world turns. But again, I feel as though I'm in a place of growth. There are going to be some who feel like, it's a place of regression or deception. Am I deceived? Maybe. I don't feel like it though. So yeah, your boy is not a traveler. Not a seeker. I'm not necessarily seeking for anything. I believe that the answers that we all are looking for are within us. They're just layered over with cultural expectations and societal explanations and traditions and a whole lot of other stuff we don't have time to get into in this video. So yes, I'm not seeking. I'm traveling. I'm a traveler. Just exploring, seeing what's out here in the world, because I recognize that the spiritual traditions, the wisdom traditions that are out there, all can't be or all aren't demonic counterfeits to deter people away from the truth. And you know what? Here's the great thing about it. You don't have to believe that, right? I am not out here to demonize organized religion. I'm not out here to demonize Christianity and Christians or anybody who believes, anything like that. You are a free sovereign being. You can choose to believe that if you want. I'm just merely making a choice for myself and talking about it because I feel like as an individual with social media these days and seeing as how, even in my history, I've talked about all of these things. I feel like in a sense I'm kind of like a public figure, and when there's a shift, there's some explanation to be given. But I'm doing this completely of my own volition and my desire to do so. So yeah, to conclude, again, I'm not leaving God. I'm just leaving one idea, one construct of who God is. If that leads me down a path of destruction and my life completely ends up in a gutter somewhere, either now or in a life to come, remains to be seen. But I'll tell you what, though, I don't have any fear of it. Because I feel like if the only thing that would keep me where I was the possibility and potential of eternity in hell, I don't feel like that fear is a solid reason. I'm open to conversation though. If you want to discuss, you can reach out. I can't say we'll talk soon or anything, but if you watched the video this far, I do appreciate your time and I hope it wasn't wasted. And I do love you and I appreciate you. So, until the next time, much love.